The big pack.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, send your contact if you can.
Planning Commission, call to order. Planning Commission meeting, May 17th, 2023. Get a pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Get roll call.
Present.
Present.
Present. Present.
Okay, sorry about that. And then Chair Gonzalez. So the only one that's absent is Commissioner Fonseca. And then just to let everyone know, he did mention he might be about 10 minutes late.
Yeah, on to the next item, approval of the agenda. At this time, the commission may announce any item being pulled from the agenda or continue to another date. Request the moving of any item on the agenda. Approval of the minutes. We have anything on the,
I would ask for someone to move to approve the agenda.
okay, I'm sorry.
But I would like to
To motion.
motion to move a couple items.
Okay,
Item 3. I believe needs further time to evaluate each and everything that's on there. It's a large and lengthy document. And so perhaps an additional week is warranted. I don't know if we could maybe do something next week or the addition or the following.
Yes, commissioners, there is a request to actually items 3 and 4. When we get to them, there is a request for item 4 to table by the applicant. So that is the request. So not to continue it, but to table it and be renoticed. Sure.
Okay.
Excuse me, can you guys lower your mics a little bit?
So I'd like to motion that we continue item 3 and to table item 4. Per the request.
For item 3, which is the zoning consistency update, staff is going to recommend that we continue the item to a special meeting, if that's okay with the planning commission on Tuesday, May 30th, if that's suitable for the commissioners. And if you're available that evening at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Yes,
Tuesday, May 30th, after the holiday.
Yes.
Yes. Are you available for that meeting?
How many days? Is that the only day available?
Yeah, because I know it's not gonna work on the 30th, and then so otherwise we could continue it to the regular meeting of June 7th.
I think that probably works best.
Okay, and that's ultimately up to the planning commission. I am trying to get it as soon as possible to the planning commission, but you know, if it's more suitable for the commission on June 7th, then there's no problem.
How soon do we need this?
You know, ideally, we were trying to have this heard today. But you know, the next meeting is the 7th, so we could go the 7th if it's better for everyone.
Can we hear it and then conclude and then determine if we can postpone it? And as far as whether or not we're gonna adopt the resolution, et cetera, or does that have to?
I wouldn't recommend we do so because we also communicate with the consultant not to present an item today. Yeah, we need some additional time from some of the letters that we received. And so we just wouldn't be prepared to present an item today.
Yeah, I think we should issue a continuance
Okay,
and reschedule for June.
okay, June 7th.
Yeah,
Okay,
make a motion.
yeah, like just motion to continue the item and to table 4, right? Is that where as proposed?
yeah, the applicant requests a table item 4, which staff is agreeable to. And then item 3 would be continued to June 7th, because that looks like it works for everyone, the regular meeting.
Yes.
And there is a request for item 6 by the applicant to, there's a staff report for that, to continue it to the 2nd meeting in June.
For the 3rd week of June?
The 2nd
Right.
meeting in June, so I
Yeah,
believe that
that'd
the
be-
21st. Yeah, 21st of June.
Okay. So I'd like to motion that we continue item 3 to our first meeting in June. Table item 4 and to continue item 6 to the 2nd meeting in June.
Okay, I'll second Commissioner Hernandez's motion.
Okay. Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Arbizu,
Yes.
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez,
Yes,
and just to be noted that alternate Commissioner Fonseca has arrived. Motion passes.
okay, going on to next item, approval of the minutes, planning commission, item number 1, planning commission meeting. Minutes for April 19, 2023.
Like to motion that we approve the minutes for Plan Commission meeting held on April 19th.
Second that.
Okay. Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Arbizu,
Yes.
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Gonzalez.
Yes. Going on to item number 2, planning commission meeting minutes for the May 3rd, 2023.
Any comments? Wonderful, I can motion. Perfect. I motion to approve the planning commission meeting minutes from May 3rd.
And I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Arbizu,
Yes.
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez.
Yes.
Passes.
Going on to the next item, written communications. We have any?
None from staff.
Like, public comments, non-agenda items, the public may address the commission on any item of interest to the public that is not on the agenda, but is within the subject jurisdiction thereof. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
If there's anybody online Zoom, if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand.
There's someone.
Should we? Yeah, let me open up the public comments, 609.
Okay. Yeah. And we do have a translator here, so are you able to do it through Zoom? Yes. Okay. Okay. So we do have a public speaker in the council chambers that is requesting translation.
Y pásale,
Sí, por
pásale,
favor.
papel.
Yo vivo en la ciudad de Coachella, yo trabajo en la calle. por mi
Excuse me,
cuenta.
please speak into the microphone.
Habla el micrófono.
A lo mejor está apagado, ¿no? ¿No está apagado? Ahí está. Parece que sí, ¿no? Sí,
Sí, sí.
Ujú.
ok. Yo vivo en la ciudad de Coachella, trabajo por mi cuenta. Pues sí, saqué mi licencia en la ciudad para trabajar en el área, ¿verdad? Tengo 32 años viviendo en Coachella, pero mucha gente me pide trabajos. Cuando comenzaron a cerrar los garage para hacerlos a recámara, que dieron los permisos, pues la gente, como yo hago estructuras también, sombras para los carros, ¿verdad? Sé hacerlo. Entonces, mucha gente me dice que si hay permisos, le digo que no hay permisos, porque yo sé que no hay. Yo voy seguido a la oficina a sacar permisos para lo que yo hago de remodelaciones de showers o cambiar ventanas o eso. Y yo les pregunto por eso y me dicen que no hay permiso. Entonces yo quería exponer eso, pues, que si hubiera una forma segura, pues, de que ustedes consideraran eso, que en el driveway se puedan aceptar eso. O sea, comenzando así, pues, nada más, ¿verdad?
You said,
Español o en inglés, porque
Sí.
I'll do it in English if you do the translation for me.
mira lo que le voy a preguntar, aquí tenemos el inspector de
Oh,
Coachella, o él puede darle poquita
todos.
información en lo que es son de la ley de
Señor, ¿cómo se llama, por favor?
Mi nombre es Juan Castillo.
Juan Castillo,
Sí.
mucho gusto.
You want to address that, Mr. Diaz?
Thank you, commissioners. So we spoke earlier, and what he was asking for is to get some kind of regulation for the shade structures that he's been building over the driveways.
yeah, he's talking about detached garages, right?
Well, he mentioned the ADUs because the garage conversions,
Yeah.
which we are permitting, because a lot of what happens is now there's no covered parking.
Right.
And so he's been building the shade structures over driveways.
Yeah.
He's been trying to obtain permits, but the city doesn't issue permits for those right now.
So do we not issue detached garage permits?
We do. What he's been building are the shade structures that go over the driveway. itself.
Right, so it would like just be over the driveway versus like in the vicinity of the home, right?
Correct.
So
So it's still within the property lines. But we don't have, we currently don't have, but we currently don't issue permits for these
Is it like a
driveway.
porch or like a
shades.
carport? Is that what we're talking
Like,
about?
yeah,
So there's no regulations that the city basically has or any standards that are set to build those.
correct. So right now, we don't issue permits for those. And so he's trying to come in compliance somehow. So he's coming forward to you guys, to the planning commission, to see if there's something that we can provide for him, some kind of guidance or regulation for that. So.
But the one, the tin the roof is not, it's not real roof like a plywood or metal, it's like a patio cover like mesh only.
Sure.
It's only to cover the sand,
Yeah.
that's what. It's something like not heavy.
So commissioners,
Excuse me, I'm sorry. What are we currently doing with those? Because I know there's not just one, there's a lot of them throughout the city. So my concern is, and I'm a builder also, my concern is the structural integrity these things are building, because right down the street from my house, I seen one that had lifted and it hit the actual wires. Fire department was out there and trying to address that problem, so I don't know what the proper approach. I mean, we would have to hear it from the building department also and coordinate with us to try to see how we could bring them into compliance. But my main concern is making sure that they have a structural engineer to look at them and calculate them to make sure they're safe and they're not a threat to the public, you know, because, you know, we always have these high winds and that's my biggest concern is that, you know, somebody gets hurt.
So I have a question for the director, Mr. Director, what would be the process to adopt a standard for this need, right? Obviously, you know, there's a need for them, and perhaps we can explore as a city and maybe start a pilot program, et cetera, right? Or maybe, you know, just go down that road, and if that's something that the department is willing to explore, what would be the first step in that direction?
I think where are we currently at anyway? Because I know that there's probably code enforcement has a list of them from throughout the city. So where are we at exactly on the ones that are out of compliance?
So I actually gave a stop work notice today on when he was building, and that's kind of why, that's what brought him here.
Okay,
So we currently don't allow them. The reason why they're not allowed is that we have a 20-foot setback requirement for single family residential, right? So you can't have structures within that 20-foot setback. So the only way to allow it is if we have exceptions for it. But there's things that we just met about this last week. Because we took this item to city council to see if they wanted us to look into regulations to allow for this. But there are things that we have to be concerned about. One is the structural integrity. So it probably needs to be engineered because of the concerns that you brought up. We just met with the fire department to see what their concerns are. There's not a whole bunch of concerns with the fire department. So it looks like there's a possibility there. And then the other is looking into, well, what's an acceptable structure, right? From an aesthetic point of view, you could have a bad looking one and you can have a good looking one. So we want to establish a standard for how these look. Now there's the possibility that these end up being in every driveway in each home in a neighborhood. And so the planning commission will have to weigh in to see if that's acceptable, right? Is it, and so we are working on drafting those standards. And so we do plan to bring that back to a study session. If you want to state when that study session is, it would be good because it would kind of give us the kind of a deadline to kind of get some material to the planning commission. But you know, it has been a little tough to kind of finalize what the standards are going to be. But you know, it would be good to hear for a planning commission if you want to see something like this, come back to you next month, and then you can give us some feedback. But we do plan to have this come back to planning commission and council as a potential standard for the city.
How far are we away from getting all the EDU stuff up and ready to go?
Like the pre-approved plans,
Yeah,
probably gonna be in September.
can we roll all that into this? But obviously it impacts, right? Obviously this cascades from there, right? So obviously if we're building ADUs and JADUs, you're right, parking's gone. The only thing they have left is driveway and cars exposed to the elements, and it almost just makes sense to figure out some mitigation for them.
You know what, that's makes me think of an idea. So we do meet with our ADU consultant tomorrow, but maybe as part of this effort of developing pre-approved plans, it's like, well, how do we handle parking space, right? Obviously, people need it here because of the weather. So we can have that discussion with them. Maybe there's a way that they draft some type of standard that would be acceptable to the city. So we do have a design professional on contract with us right now.
Okay, so maybe that professional can include some elevation renderings that match what he's proposing, right? And so figure out that just so there's continuity between what we're trying to streamline.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. It's a good opportunity to do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's an idea, because if we're allowing the ADUs, you know, and then we're also allowing the conversions of garages into living quarters, you know, so I think that, you know, one of your second biggest investments is your vehicle, so I think it's a consideration that we had, you know, as long as they're structurally sound and aesthetically right. I think we should have a standard, and if they build them within the realm of being safe, that's the most important part. But yeah, I think I'm gonna propose that we do a special meeting, or I'll leave it up to you, Gabe, that you put something together that we could actually have a, you know, conversation about it, and we're gonna have to come up to some kind of logical conclusion on it, because I think it's important that we address this issue. We already approved 80 ADUs, and you know, people need a place to park, you know, to keep their cars out of the elements.
yeah,
So
definitely. We do get a lot of complaints about them too, so I want to be clear about that. So, you know, it's going to be about how do we strike the right balance.
well, I think that we need to open up to the public and let them come in and address their issues, you know, what their concerns are. But I think we had to consider it, and then give to the public to have you know, feedback from the public on what they want to see and not see.
And the only thing, one thing I would caution is that we exclude prefabricated. And obviously synthetic coverings, right? Just because they're exposed to the elements as well, and they deteriorate over time. And the last thing you want to see is, you know, coverings that have been eaten away by the sun. Right. And so I think if we go towards more lattices or patio or covering, full coverage type is probably the way to go.
I think whatever the conclusion is, I think the important thing is that, you know, we come to some kind of, you know, whatever it is, it's aesthetically pleasing, because like you said, I've seen some nice ones and I've seen some not so nice ones, so we need to either figure it out and you know, make sure that we're addressing the public's concerns. You know.
But in the meantime, will his stop work of notice be held?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be, because, you know, it's a building inspector issuing the citation,
Okay.
yeah. So we don't have no control over that, because we still
Yeah.
have to figure out what the pros and cons are gonna be
Well-
when it comes to that, and if we're gonna allow it at all.
Yeah, unless we get the consultant to move on this, right? So obviously, that's what the start would be, and how fast and quickly this can be turned around and release this segment, right? Because obviously there's a need for this. It's all about timing here.
Yeah, so we'll check in with them tomorrow and see what, if anything, can be done earlier. Then we'll bring it back.
Yeah, can we get just a status report of your first meeting? See where we're at. And just whether it's a go and not, right? And go from there.
Yeah, so let's see if we can do this for June, one of our June meetings.
Yeah, I would recommend to have a special meeting also, maybe a joint session with the city council. It's a concern across the city, you know, where people have already built them and people wanting to build them, so we gotta figure out what the standard's gonna be.
If there's a.
Yeah, if there's a standard.
And since we're gonna, you know, maybe we can carry on that discussion for the study session, for sure, because I know there is one more. Was there one more hand up? No? Oh, okay. Oh. For public comment.
Hey, gracias.
But
How you doing, council members? My name is Angel Ramos and I live here in Coachella on Jennifer Way, 52407. I just wanted to, we inherited 2 properties, me and my brother, parcel numbers, and they're on 50th and Tyler. And we submitted for a permit to build a house there, and while building the house, because I'm going to do a homeowner builder, we have we wanted to put a temporary, like a trailer there. So we needed to get a permit for a trailer so we could live on site while we're building the house. And the parcels are zoned for urban development. And we wanted to see if we can potentially get them changed to rural, rancho rural. That our location where we're at, and right behind us, it's already designated for rancho rural, like the next property over. So just coming to you guys to see if we could possibly change ours so that we could build our houses and still keep the agriculture, but so that we can build our homes on our property. Just wanted to see if you guys.
Okay. I'll take the individual property. We can, yeah. Or your comment. Yeah. So Chair and Plan Commission, this is probably related to the item 3 from the agenda, so we'll have a conversation with them and see what's possible. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
from-
Thank you.
Okay, on to the next item. Reports and requests. We've done that already, huh? Reports and requests.
We did also hold this.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
We need to close the public hearing.
Closing the public hearing at 6:25. Reports and requests.
No reports and requests from staff.
Okay, going on to a non-hearing item, public hearing calendar. Ways and judicial. City of Coachella zoning consistency update, general plan amendment number 2303. And zoning ordinance amendment number 20-03. We did, so we moved to June 7th.
So Plan Commission, this is what the request to continue to, June 7th, but I just want to check with legal counsel if we need to open any public comment on this.
Yeah, Chair Gonzalez, I would recommend that you open
Okay, so
the event. So welcome, we just as a note to commenters, who make them aware that, for any items that are completed to the extent that they're the same when they come back. You only get to speak one time either now or when the item is presented again.
okay, perfect. So we're opening up the public comment at 6:26. Any public comments? No public comments?
Be online.
Video online, Zoom, nada. Okay,
There is someone in the audience that's provide comments to the Plan Commission, but it looks like maybe they have their hand raised now.
okay.
Go ahead and unmute.
Good evening, Commission. Can you hear me?
Sir.
Yes,
Hi, this is Louis Lopez, your old planning director.
Yes, sir. I was hoping you would be here so I could give you a handshake.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, my understanding was the item was going to be continued, so we were going to defer our comments until later. However, we submitted the comment letter from my client, Mr. Javier Solis, regarding his property, which is just a little over an acre on the west side of Van Buren Boulevard. And he has two neighbors that also have smaller sized lots in comparison to what you would normally associate with a neighborhood commercial development. So their desire is to be left with a multifamily zoning instead of the mixed use neighborhood center designation under this scheme that the city has come up with. It's really an exciting project, I think, for them and the city in general, that the zoning will be brought up to consistency with the general plan. Their main concern is that their properties will become non-conforming use because they have two of the lots have a single family home on them. And that creates issues with refinancing or selling the home. But we believe that by leaving the GN, which is now the general neighborhood designation, and if we could stipulate a minimum density of 15 to the acre that's required under that designation. We believe that's consistent, still consistent with the general plan, but really takes these parcels out of what would be commercial mixed use, because if we extend that neighborhood center all the way down to 49th, I'm thinking the corner property at 49th definitely should be commercial. And the one to the north would make sense also to include it. And those are larger lots, you know, they're close to 5 acres each. And you have this little grouping of 3 lots that are, you know, 1.4 acres and 2.7 acres, something like that. So that's basically our request, and we would request that you consider designating those for general neighborhood zoning. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Commissioner, there's a letter, Olivia Lopez, that's in front of you. One of the things that was brought up in the letter is an issue on the noticing, so we will renotice the public hearing as well for June 7th.
Yeah, it gives us some time to review it, read it. So, okay.
Was there an issue with the notice of the public hearing, or because that's what I also read in the letter, in the comment letter? I'm not understanding how it was.
Yeah, so the critique from Mr. Lopez is that that it didn't accurately reflect a change to the zoning map for this effort, right? So it talked about a zoning ordinance amendment, more like the text of the zoning code rather than the official zoning map. So what we'll do is just be more specific on the notice, just to kind of satisfy that comment.
Understood, thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the public? No raise hands.
There are none more online.
Yeah, closing the public comments at 6:30. Moving on to item number 4. Standard rules of business work. LLC GPA number 2201. EA number 23-03. General plan amendment number 2301. Is a proposal to change the general plan use designation of 38.8 acres site located at the northeast corner of Avenue 54 in Tyler from the existing urban employment center designation to the industrial district designation. Environmental assessment number 2301 is a proposal addendum to the general plan update EIR in connection with this project. Applicant Malone Tobis.
Thank you, Chair. Associate Planner Adrian Moreno is just going to give you a briefing on this item.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Adrian Moreno, the case planner for item number 4, GPA 2301, EA 2301, Santa Rosa Business Park. As mentioned previously in this meeting, the applicant requested this item to be tabled. Upon re-examining the need for this general plan amendment, the letter requesting the item to be tabled is in the agenda packet that you have in front of you. Also attached is a letter we received from Safer, an environmental group, who provided comments for this item. Staff are aware of these comments, but these comments are not an issue at this time because, again, the applicant requested this item to be tabled. If the item comes back up again, the item will be renoticed and brought before the Planning Commission.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. We have to open this up for comment.
His item's tabled, so no.
Okay. All right. Okay, going on to item number 5, the Tripoli mixed use project, the third proposed revision. This proposal addendum of conditions to use permit CUP 351 and architectural review AR 2204 for the PUD plan unit development overlay zone guidelines, design revision and modifications to the condition of approval for mixed usage development consisting of 108 apartment units and 4 retail units on 2.8 acres of vacant CG general commercial zone property at the northeast corner of Cesar Chavez Street in Baghdad. APN 778-081-003 and -001 applicant Chelsea Investment Corporation. We open up the public comment.
I have a presentation before that.
So before we begin, I'd like to disclose that I did meet with the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. All right, I have a brief presentation. So thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Gabriel Perez, your Development Service Director, the site of the Tripoli Mixed Use Project. Some of you may have seen this project before. Just a little bit of background. This project was initially approved by the Planning Commission or recommended for approval on April 20th, 2022. Involves a change of zone, conditional use permit, architecture review, and established a planned unit development overlay zone on the property for a mixed use project with 108 apartment units and 2 retail units at that time. City Council approved it as a public hearing on May 11, 2022. On October 26, 2022, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of design modifications that were requested by the applicant. And so that went forward to the City Council on November 9th, 2022, where those modifications were approved. Again, on February 15th, 2023, the Planning Commission considered second amendments to the project, which included removal of the elevator from building A and adding a condition for construction of the city park at 9th Street, known as the IAD parcel. The March 8th, 2023, the City Council approved that second amendment for the elevator and the park. So this would be the third amendment that the applicant is requesting. And so on April 4th, staff did meet with the applicant regarding some requested changes. The project is in plan check. And during plan check, we noticed that there were design modifications that were made that were not consistent with the conditions of approval and the planning and the City Council approval. And as the director determined that those items are related to conditions of approval are significant and should come back to the Planning Commission and City Council. So the applicant submitted a new application on April 19th, 2023, with those proposed design modifications. Just to kind of give you a history of some of the previously approved modifications that were requested by the applicant, the Planning Commission and City Council did approve these. So I'm just highlighting 7 of those. Removing slope windowsill requirement. That was a condition of approval. Bringing a cornice trim closer to the edge of roof tile. I'll explain what that one is in the future slides. Removing the 15-foot first floor plate height requirement for the ground floor commercial component. Number 4, removing the need for a residential level on the first floor to be 3 feet above the sidewalk. Removing the 2-piece clay tile requirement, and removing the smooth stucco finish requirement, and removing the requirement for a sidewalk separated from the curb by the landscape parkway on the exterior part of the project. Here's a vicinity map that shows the location. So it's at the northeast corner of Cesar Chavez and Baghdad Avenue. It's within the Pueblo Viejo district, and the total site acreage is 2.8 acres. And here's a site plan with building A and building B. This is the initial perspective drawing for what was originally submitted for the project. So Planning Commission initially reviewed this as well as City Council, and it was approved. Spanish colonial revival type architecture. Just the views of the elevations from Cesar Chavez Street and Baghdad. And then the view from Tripoli Way and then 6th Street. So the applicant proposed to go in a different direction with the architecture and also brought in a new architect to work on designs that would be more cost conscious for the builder to build the project. And so what I wanted to do here is show you what was approved with the first amendment design changes. So at the top, you could see what was first approved for building B. And at the bottom, you could see what was approved by the planning commission with the First Amendment, subject to conditions of approval that required some additional improvements. So just some features at the top, I just want to point out. On the Cesar Chavez Street elevation, you can kind of see that the tower on the left side that was removed with building B. And that was removed for cost reasons by the applicant. There was a condition of approval that was added to the project that the tower be reintroduced to the project. And that's still in question today by the applicant or requested to be removed as a condition of approval. You could see the tower element on the right-hand side with the revision that it's a little bit set back from the corner versus the original design where the tower was completely at the corner, kind of framing that perspective. Other design changes include some of the roof line features, some of the modulation for the building. A big part of the project that was still retained was the ground floor retail component. And so there are two retail spaces on the first floor. So they retain a lot of that look for the windows, as well as the original height that was proposed. There are awnings that are proposed on that elevation as well. But you can see there's some differences in the architecture that's proposed. This is on building B. This is the Baghdad Avenue frontage. So the original approval at the top, and then the amended project is shown below. And so with that, the applicant, you could identify some of the design changes. The roof lines are a little bit different. Some of the projecting elements that were there before are no longer there. You can see the tower element in this perspective as well on the right-hand side for the top elevation. For building A on the Tripoli Avenue frontage, this is the perspective. And so you could kind of see the commercial component is actually more toward the right-hand side facing 6th Street. And the design changes that were proposed by the project applicant at the bottom. And so there are some design features that are different, and so there's less of that tower appearance on the revision. So for building A, this is the perspective that would face 6th Street. And so there is ground floor retail proposed with this elevation. And then there was one focal tower that's proposed. The applicant proposed to change that and have two smaller size towers on that frame the building that front 6th Street. They do retain a lot of that ground floor retail architectural appearance with the awnings and the windows. But you could see the architectural difference on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. The right hand side of the project, you can see it's more of a faded look because that's further set back, because the entire project isn't completely at the corner of 6th Street and Cesar Chavez. There's that commercial development that's there, so you would see that component of the building behind the commercial center. And these were the elevations that were presented. So focal points being 6th Street and the other being Cesar Chavez Street on the arterial. These are some perspective renderings that were provided by the applicant with the latest design. And so this would be the elevation at the corner of Tripoli and 6th Street. And so you can see the ground floor retail, and then 2nd and 3rd floor residential, and then there's residential on the 1st floor along the Tripoli elevation. This is a rendering from the corner of Cesar Chavez Street and Baghdad. And again, this corner has the 1st floor retail, so there's 2 spaces on the 1st floor. And then on the 2nd and 3rd floor, the residential apartments. And so what I want to do here is compare what was approved with those second amendments, which is shown at the top, and then what was submitted during plan check, right? So being that these are the elevation plan commission has not approved yet. So comparing the difference, you could see, you know, the two new towers that were introduced on the 6th Street elevation are there. A lot of that elevation is pretty similar. The ground floor retail, very similar. But if you look on the portion, as I mentioned, there's going to be a portion of this building that's set back behind the commercial area. You could see where some of those, there's like 3 stacked windows that were removed. You know, the applicant stated that you really wouldn't be able to see them by how far tucked back the building is. You know, I think staff is amenable to that because we understand it's not facing 6th Street, but we just want to point out what that difference is, right? So this would be the elevation that faces Tripoli Avenue. So the top is what was reviewed by the Planning Commission, still subject to some of the design improvements and the conditions of approval. Down below is what was submitted during plan check. So, you know, a lot of the elevations look very similar, but one of the things that we noticed is that there was a new parapet wall that was introduced and not approved by the Planning Commission. So at the top elevation, you could see that the roof line is basically framed by a tile roof system. Down below, you can see it still has the tile roof system, but it's kind of hard to see, like on these renderings, that there is a parapet wall a few feet above the red roof tile. Where the red arrow is, you can kind of see that that feature that projects out from the building. You know, it had a roof element that was removed and instead replaced with parapet wall. This elevation is the elevation that faces Cesar Chavez Street. So the top was the one that was last approved by the Planning Commission, and then the one below is what was submitted during plan check. And so starting from the tower at the corner, you could see that the tower still doesn't satisfy the condition of approval, where the condition of approval says that the tower would be brought to the corner, but you could see it's spaced with the 2 windows, and the applicant has stated that they can't move the tower to the corner because of the way that the apartment unit is configured. And so that's why they have left it as originally proposed with the first amendment. The ground floor retail stays largely the same. You know, we don't have a lot of recommendations there, but you could see where I have the red arrow, you could see the difference in what was done with the roof line. So there is an element where it just is a vertical element, and then it's topped off with a parapet wall instead of with red tile roof. The red tile roof on this elevation too stops at a certain point, and then there's a parapet wall that's introduced a few feet above that. Parapet wall wasn't part of this elevation as well. What's also missing from this elevation is the tower feature on the left-hand side. That is a condition of approval, and the applicant is requesting removal of that tower condition. This is building B, the Baghdad Avenue frontage. And so at the top is what was considered by the Planning Commission, still subject to some of the design improvements and the conditions of approval. And below that is what was submitted during plan check. So we'll start with the red arrows at the top. So you can kind of see it had more of the Spanish tile roof element on some of the projecting elements in the middle. And then that was changed to a parapet wall that frames the top of that component of the building. The other arrow near the tower, you could see that there were 2 windows that were removed, and so you have more of a blank wall in that expense. And we recommend there be a wall there unless there's some other feature that can prevent that from looking like a blank wall. But again, on this elevation, at the top, you could see that the top of the building was framed by a tile roof structure. On this elevation, there is a parapet wall top. So what are the proposed design changes? I'm going to go through each of them because these relate to the conditions of approval. Actually, this one isn't the conditions of approval. So I did refer to this already. They are removing the slope tile roof as what is the top of the roof line, and instead adding a parapet wall, and that's highlighted in yellow. So at the top, you can see what was approved, and at the bottom, seeing the red tile roof, but then a parapet wall that extends above it. The applicant is requesting to delete some of the elements of condition number 18, and that's the design condition for the project. And so there was a condition to ensure sufficient window recesses. Proposed foam enhancements around the window areas may be removed with sufficient window recesses. This is usually an element that adds more shadows and visual interest to the building instead of the window being completely at the wall plane. And so these pictures kind of depict what that would look like. And so the applicant in the yellow highlight shows where they have provided those window recesses, which would be at the first floor commercial part of this building, and then along the main tower. Some of the other areas that we think would make sense to do this are the areas highlighted in blue. But the applicant doesn't propose to do more than what's in the yellow. A lot of that comes from a cost consideration for the applicant. The applicant would like to delete condition 18 D. I include an enhanced decorative balcony structure at each tower that provides a visual focal point from Cesar Chavez Street and 6th Street. So on the tower, the idea is to maybe have some kind of balcony feature like this. It can be done in a variety of different ways. And then the applicant has identified to staff that they believe that they have a well-articulated tower. So we would still recommend this. I don't think if this feature was removed from the tower, we do think there are significant design features on the tower element. But we still think this would be a good idea for the project. Deleting another component of condition 18, which would be utilizing an alternate color banding at the building base, such as terracotta color. So the applicant indicated in their correspondence that they believe that this would be extra cost. Staff believes that this is simply adding paint to the bottom of the building. That was part of the original design. So if you look at the photo on the left, the banding at the bottom, which was a gray color, we recommended terracotta color, was provided initially to the Planning Commission. The terracotta color would probably look like the one on the right. And then the original project that they proposed in the downtown, the Pueblo Viejo Villas, does have some of that banding that's shown at the bottom picture. The applicant proposes to delete another part of that condition 18, which is staff identified that awnings should be designed and constructed to support a catenary curve, with Spanish colonial revival design to also increase window visibility. So depicted below on the left is the awnings that were constructed for the Pueblo Viejo Villas project. We've walked through this before and felt that there could be a higher quality with that awning. And then the catenary curve is more like what you would see in the middle design. We don't think it's that difficult of a feature to pull off, but it's not what was proposed in their letter on the right. They depicted it would be a feature that would look like that curved kind of awning. That's not what staff intended by it. The other component of condition 18 is to utilize a similar tower feature on the north end of building B along Cesar Chavez to the original approved elevation drawing. So the original drawing that was approved by the planning commission is the one on the left, which showed like this structural feature that really served as a bookend for that building. And staff feels that that tower should still be left there. Now, if it's the applicant has indicated it's definitely a cost consideration for them. So staff does recommend there's other ways to achieve that height, such as the picture shown there. It's maybe not a tower where you would have a bell or anything like that, but it does provide a structural element that isn't as cost prohibitive as the one shown on the left. The other component of condition 18 that the applicant proposes to remove is to move the tower feature at the corner of Cesar Chavez and Baghdad Avenue all the way to the corner. That was originally approved with the original design. And so instead, in order to accommodate the way that they've designed their units, that it would have to be kind of set back behind where you see those windows, and then where I show where there would be that gap in red. Another feature is, this is more internal to the project. And so these are elevations that you wouldn't see from Baghdad, Tripoli, 6th Street, or Cesar Chavez. But you could see the original proposal by the applicant, which is really the entrance from the parking lot, had these window features, right? So those window features were actually removed and instead would just kind of have like the blank wall. And so you could see the difference with the red arrows that point to the one at the top with the windows and the one below where they're removed. The other is these 3 windows that are removed that are shown on the top elevation. They're shown removed at the bottom one. The other proposed design change, this would be this arrow at the top highlights 4 windows that were originally proposed. Those are proposed to be removed, and this is what was provided in plan check. And so the applicant feels that this isn't as visible from the streets. This would actually be the entrance to the project, or the driveway entrance off of Baghdad Avenue. One of the other recommendations that we provided during plan check was how the bottom of that tower feature was going to be treated, because you could tell with the snippet of the tower shown on the right that you can't tell what's underneath that roof feature. And so we wouldn't be able to see what that looks like until we saw what the building's going to look like in plan check. And so we identified that there should be rafter tails. They don't have to be real rafter tails. You know, the ones depicted on the left, on the top 2 pictures show kind of, those are faux rafter tails. They kind of want to mirror similar to what they did with the Pueblo Viejo Villas project, where it would just kind of be like a stucco just cap feature below the roof. We didn't receive any detailed lighting details during the architectural review. And so we were looking to see what the lighting detail would be during plan check. And we added that as a comment. But we also want to present it to the Planning Commission to get your feedback. Now, initially with the Pueblo Viejo Villas project, you have this sconce feature that's added on the building elevation. That's a little bit more of a modern design. And so we just recommend that the light feature be more keeping with, similar to the 2 pictures on the right-hand side, which is more in keeping with Spanish colonial revival architecture. And here's a perspective of Pueblo Viejo Villas. Building A, this is just what it looks like on the first floor with the 2 commercial components facing 6th Street. And then building B that frames the corner of Cesar Chavez Street and Baghdad, which also has 2 commercial spaces on the first floor. These are the proposed units. There was a landscape that's approved. There's no suggested design changes for the landscape plan. we have already recommended approval of it because it is consistent with their original design. But this is the landscape palette for the project. These are the trees that are proposed, as well as the shrubs that are proposed in the landscape areas. As far as environmental review, this project is an infill project and would be considered exempt under CEQA because it is a project on a site under 5 acres. There are alternatives that were identified for the Planning Commission. So there was a resolution that was prepared if the Planning Commission wanted to approve the applicant's request to modify the conditions. And so they're provided in your resolution. You could approve the resolution under number 2 with modifications. Or number 3, not approve the resolution and maintain the existing project approvals. The applicant is also requesting a 12-month time extension. So we do recommend that the Planning Commission grant that 1-year time extension because their entitlements would expire May 11th. They did submit their 1-year time extension request before that date. And then number 4, the other alternative is to continue the item, provide staff and the applicant with direction. We wouldn't recommend continuing it because the applicant is on a time crunch regarding their financing, which they'll be able to explain in their comments. But staff does recommend that the Planning Commission not approve the resolution that with the modified conditions that are recommended by the applicant. And we uphold the existing approvals with the conditions of approval. But that the Planning Commission grant the 1-year time extension. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is in the audience and the applicant also has a presentation.
We do have, we'll just wait to open the public comment once they respond. I don't know, we've already had conditions of approval on this project and this is our 3rd visit here. I'd like to see that the original approvals built the way you guys originally designed it. You know, this is you know, just it's not fair for the city either. You know, what you guys have done to this project. I think the original project was aesthetically pleasant. It's the entryway to our downtown area, and I think we ought to stick with the original plan that we that was approved. You know, we have conditions of approval. You don't submit a plan and then shop it up to what you guys have done on this project. You know, it's just not fair for our city. And I'm going to recommend that the staff.
Chair Gonzalez, sorry to interject. I would recommend that you that you hear from the applicant and open the public hearing before you make any comments or discussion on.
Okay, so
recommendations.
I'm going to open up the public hearing at 7:01. Yeah, it's just like day and night, this project, you know, it's I don't think it's fair for the city. We've already had we already have an existing building. You guys, complex you guys did. It's beautiful. And we gotta at least get close to what you guys have already built here, you know.
Chair, let's let the team speak. So they have a presentation and then we can continue our comments.
Good evening. Thank you so much for hearing the project again. Okay, I get to figure out how to use that. So nice to see the Planning Commission that's advanced. My name is Colleen Edwards. I work for Chelsea Investment Corporation. And you know the project well. So we'll just get going. Advanced. There we go. So we have the team with us today to answer your questions. There's a lot of very specific detail here and a lot of things to consider. So at the team, we have David Potter, who is the Director of Development. We have Dave Davis, who is our Director of Plan Check and Entitlements. And we also have the architect, Mark Longstaff. He's on a separate slide. So Chelsea is well known in the city. We did develop the Pueblo Viejo Villas project. We've developed over 12,000 affordable housing units. We're headquartered in San Diego and we are an owner operator. So we don't build and walk away. We build and own and stay with the city. Mark Longstaff is our new architect for the project. We're glad to have him on the team. He's very experienced and also very experienced with affordable housing. He's an expert on this. He's also the designer of the Pueblo Viejo Villas project, which is why we brought him back to take over the design from the first company that we were working with. I wanted to point out in their marketing materials that they really focus on design and work to get designs that are customized for each circumstance, one of a kind neighborhoods. And I think that's what we've ended up achieving in this case. So the trouble that we have right now with the schedule is that this project is subject to governmental regulations. We got the tax credits and financing. We are fully financed. We are almost shovel ready, but for the 10 issues that are outstanding in front of the council, the commission today. We have a deadline to close in just a few weeks. The statutory deadline is the 5th of June, so not much time. So we need either a grading or building permit issued with the target date of 5/23, not 6/23. With those requirements met, we would start construction in June and get going on the project. We will also have a deadline because this is affordable housing. It's a partnership with various governmental agencies. We have a deadline to finish it in December 2024. Before we get into the architecture, I do want to restate it's 108 units. We'll have a full-time on-site manager. We'll have 10 units for folks with disabilities. It's 100% affordable housing for folks earning between 30 and 60% of AMI, similar to the existing building that we have. When we closed the wait list on the previous building, we had 3,000 applications in excess of the 105 units we constructed previously. So there's an enormous demand for this type of housing. So as everyone has stated, the mistake we made is with the initial design of the project. So we submitted initial design and it was terrific, but it was over-designed and it was with an architect that wasn't as experienced with affordable housing. So it had an enormous number of details that when we turned it over to our construction department to price for us, it turned out we couldn't afford. So if we had to do this initial design, the project would be infeasible and we would not have been able to proceed with it. So the deep mansards problem, wood balconies that are not appropriate in the climate is a problem. The tower elements are beautiful, but they add square footage and cost without adding any, without adding any floor square footage to house people. And then the details were very expensive with the recessed windows, clay tile roofs, hand troweled stucco, and etc. It's our mistake and we're owning it. So we just couldn't build it. So we used this design and we told Mark, use it as an inspiration and try to get us close or something that looks good. Keep in mind the Pueblo Viejo Villas because that's beautiful and successful, and give us something that's that good or better. So the conditions of approval that we're asking to modify today refer to this original design that we couldn't afford to build. So you've seen the site plan with building A that's on 6th Street, and a portion of it is set very, very, very far back from 6th Street, and the building B that faces Cesar Chavez. And these are the renderings. And I can tell you that I sent them to the lady who is planning a grand opening coming up in early June, and her comment was, wow. So setting aside all the trouble that it's taken to get to this point, we are presenting a fabulous project that's going to look great on that corner. So this is the 6th Street elevation, and this is the Cesar Chavez. So this is an interesting drawing that I don't know that we've shared with you, Gabriel, but it does help see what's going on with the massing and how layered that elevation is with with windows and just everything set back at different depths. And it gives a really good sense of undulation and irregularity to the elevation. This also gives you a great view of the parapet. So a parapet is required for safety reasons too. So I understand from Mark that it's set back 7 feet and you will not be able to see it from the ground floor. So the intention, when you see it in elevation view, it looks like you're sticking something up there that sticks up above the roof. But the intention is for you to really not be able to see it and for us to provide that space we need on the roof for mechanical, solar, and other reasons. So this is at the entrance of Pueblo Viejo, and our goals were to preserve the historic charm and extend the civic center with those 6th Street improvements, the vibrant street scene, community spaces, and strong and successful merchants. So we're trying to do all that as well. So the upgrades that we did include, and some of these we've been able to work with Gabriel on, and that's, I wish we'd been able to work a little bit more to get through more of these things, but we've got upgraded wrought iron on the patio gates that are at the sidewalk level. And that's important because you interact with them and you see them and you walk by them. So we wanted something that you could actually touch. There's also a wrought iron gate that faces Cesar Chavez, and so we're going to add that. We also are concentrating, as you listen to the upgrades, on the 6th Street and the Cesar Chavez as the most important elevations. So the interior of the building that faces the parking lot, maybe, you know, we don't need quite as many details, but the ones facing those major streets are very important. So we've got decorative wall lighting, although we haven't figured out exactly what that will be. We'll come to an agreement on that. Instead of plate tile roofs, you've got a concrete tile, but in a blended color. It's going to look great. Gabriel suggested double doors at the commercial entries. That works. Added those. We've got decorative color shutters. We've got some raptor tail detailing at the roof lines. We've got extensive tiling, much more so than Pueblo Viejo villas. We've got accent uplighting on trees. We're going to do a maintenance agreement to make sure that the landscaping always looks good. And we're kicking in $350,000 for 9th Street Park. So the issues themselves, recessed windows. This, with the staff report, this is the first kind of, you know, negotiated position that we've seen. So it's good to be at that point where maybe we could do a few in prominent locations. We are including elevations in this presentation where you could see where we had planned for them. So maybe we can put on different hats as we look at these various issues. So the builder hat says, watch out, it is a water intrusion issue. The builder hat also says there's a cost issue. And with the varied, undulated, intense elevations, the detail is not as strong as some of those other things we're doing. So we don't think that it's as necessary. And we already went through Gabriel's presentation of where those details have been included, which are on the very important elevations to access those. On the towers. These also show where each elevation faces. So if we're facing the parking lot, there's less detail, and facing Cesar Chavez or the 6th Street, more detail. The balconies we looked at, builder hat says not hugely costly, but costly. Architect hat, he should speak for himself, but he suggests that there's a lot of other details on the building. So, you know, in consideration of project cost, if we would ask for those to be removed. The foam detail, the contractor hat, they say that they'd like a foam separation between colors. The architect should speak for himself, but his suggestion is that it takes away from the verticality of the building and brings it down. There's some mitigating positions we could take, like just have it at a retail versus on the entire building. But the architectural recommendation is to not have the banding. Awnings, this was me, it's my mistake. Glad you don't want the curved things because those are hard to deal with, and the awnings that you propose seem easy enough. So this is a no-brainer. This is fine. Similar tower feature. So we did a little mock-up of what maybe that tower feature could be. Changing it and adding a big tower at this point would involve changing the structure to the building, which would be a significant time increase, a cost increase from a consultant standpoint. And if you can see the difference between those two elevations, I just don't know that it makes enough of a difference to go through that. The corner element, this is a little bit more of an issue here. I like it. I think it looks good. I think when I saw those elevations, I thought the renderings, I thought they looked great, and that didn't call itself out. And maybe it is something when in comparison to the original design, you see more. I think it looks fine. It's a form follows function type of thing. So we mentioned that the interior unit needs the windows in those configurations. The windows that were deleted off that elevation occur in a closet. So it's kind of hard to have them there. Not quite sure what the solution would be. The impact to the change, we'd have to redo the structure. So we'd have to redesign that into the building. Probably the fastest way to do it is to fatten out that tower. And we're kind of concerned that it becomes disproportionately large. So I just don't know if the aesthetics would be improved by increasing the size. So there were a few more issues in the staff report. Lighting, we talked about landscape design. You said the landscape is fine. There are a couple references in this wording of landscape design that don't work for us. It's not something that we talked about, I don't think. The planters adjacent to the curb at Cesar Chavez, for example, because the sidewalk on Cesar Chavez was supposed to continue, and then it continued to echo that of the Pueblo Viejos villas. Also, the reference to the cluster of palm trees at Cesar and First. Probably not our project. Rafter tails, that's a new issue, not on the conditions. So what's planned is a stepped stucco finish. It's 3 stories up, it's gonna be hard to see. The rafter tails are a little bit more complex to build. They will add a little bit of cost. So with all of this, I just wanted to maybe bring your attention back to the conditions of approval. There really aren't that many that we're dealing with. 10 issues altogether, not well, including the landscaping, so 9 issues. And I would just ask for your help to please go through the 9 issues and give your feedback on each one and see if we can all kind of come together to make the project work. It's a great project. We're very excited about it. It's ready to start construction. So expert teams available to answer questions. And we really, really appreciate the help. We know we're imposing. So sorry. But yeah, we're here.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Colleen. Please proceed with your comments.
The original design, I remember clearly, you guys had a parapet wall with a gable roof on it, and it was a 2-piece tile, which is significantly expensive. You also had the smooth finish on your stucco, which is, extremely expensive. We downgraded that the second time you guys came around. We eliminated those features, which you guys obviously saved a substantial amount of money. I just see that I'd like to see this project, match what you guys built already. It's a beautiful project. We've been partners here with you guys for a lot of years, and And I just don't want to see a downgraded project, you see you see it day and night, and, the features that you guys included on the first development, and you guys coming back on the second development. So I'm gonna go with the staff recommendation. That's gonna be my recommendation. And then I'd like to hear from other commissioners and on what they think about the project.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some questions. So I was appointed after this project started, but I did come up to speed. So Colleen, thank you for your presentation and helping me understand how we got here. I understand that, your architect over designed and that comes with cost. And I thank you for accepting, acknowledging that it was on, Chelsea's part, right?
Yes.
So with that said, I did notice that there is a discrepancy between the staff's report and what you're presenting. So I want to be clear as to for those items in terms of, the landscape, a little bit about that. I'd like to discuss a little bit further and a little bit about the rafters, the little things on the tower side, because there's low cost options for that. I mean, we don't want to take the integrity of the design to the chair's point, so we can find other ways, other alternatives to bring down the cost, but meet the needs and the CPU and what we had agreed upon initially. I think we can come to a consensus with that. I'm maybe speaking for the diocese here, but that's my sentiment for that. So, Director, are we having that conversation about the landscape close to the sidewalk
So.
in the palm trees?
Yeah, so the condition that required there be a separated sidewalk from the curb and landscaping there, that was already moved by the Plan Commission.
Okay.
And so there's nothing in here that's asking them to return that back to it, because the Plan Commission had
We're good.
weighed in, so I didn't add anything about that.
Okay.
Now they're pointing to, and it is a mistake in the report, there's a last sentence on the landscape design paragraph that isn't relevant to this project, so I think that sentence should just be ignored. It just talks about some of the palm trees.
Mhm.
Their landscape design is fine. I think
It's
the
adequate.
commission has weighed in on it, and the landscape types, shrubs, trees. Staff did have preference for the separated sidewalk. But at this time, we felt like the Plan Commission had already weighed on it, and the city council.
Understood. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so I was kind of just a comment. So everyone has agreed that that's the plan would take in regards to the separation of curb, landscape and sidewalk. Like, obviously, there's a theme here that we're trying to achieve here in the city, right? And I know that's the direction that in which we're going. And now, I don't, not to say that I want to revisit, but perhaps we're willing to exchange some items, right, to achieve other features here. I mean, there's like, if we're looking for commonalities or common ground here, obviously we've conceded quite a few items already here, right? So starting with, of course, the elevator tower, which was a huge concession by the previous commission, and 10 other items or 9 other items, right? But perhaps we can, come to an agreement here where we can, all be happy, right? And I think that's what I'm willing to do is to, reintroduce some things that we were really hoping for, right? In lieu of some other things that perhaps you're willing to, come to the table with as well. Ultimately, I would like to see, because I was excited about the project as well when it was initially proposed, right? Where, hey, it's a great project. It's a great entry onto 6th Street, and it's an anchor per se, right? And I think it's from what you've constructed and presented already is for this project and product is probably the next level, right? And
Yes.
and I want to continue to see that growth, right? But also too, at the same time too, we can't I want to echo the sentiment of the chair where, we present something, you get us all excited, and then we start reeling it back, right? And that's not fair to our citizens and the people we represent on this dais.
Sure. So
And my suggestion or recommendation would be maybe continue the item and you sit with staff and really hash this out. Obviously, I'm not sure how many items or what you're looking, what you can agree on today, and how far are you away from, getting to a place where we're all happy and move forward, right? I do believe that there's a happy place. And that's what I would like to see, right? But there's other people on this dais here that probably, obviously you got 3 different opinions already.
Sure, we
And-
have a hard deadline for some sort of permit ready letter. If we do not evidence to the state of California that we are ready for a permit on 6/5, then we lose the financing and the project is dead. So what that's just where we are, that's a fact. But what we can do though is start with grading and then come back and modify the building permit to meet the conditions, if everybody's okay with doing that, in which case we can continue the conversation. So we either have to have the building permit on June 5th or the grading permit with some backup. And that's what we're working to do because we don't want to lose the financing. So other than that, yes, we're here today to say, yes, there's some things we can do and maybe those other things that would be harder.
We have a conditional approval already in the project, so I think if we stick to the original plan or the second reading,
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with that. I just don't, I just don't see, this, you bringing back a third time and it's really chopped up pretty good. So I don't know. I'm gonna stick with staff recommendation and hopefully, we can extend it. Hopefully you guys can get your permits and we can sit down and come to an agreement, a conclusion where everybody's happy. But I'd like to see the second reading and then that's what I'm gonna commit to and obviously the staff recommendation.
Director Perez, can you bring up the staff recommendations just to, there's several items? That'd be great. Oh, I know there's,
Your extension on it, can I read that one?
It's not all the way at the end.
yeah.
Going up.
I-
Keep going.
I believe it was to approve the extension with.
Yeah,
There we go.
the next one above that. So those are the alternatives that
Mhm.
the planning commission can consider.
Mhm.
So if you're agreeable with what the applicant is requesting with some of the modification or removal of the conditions, it would be alternative 1. Alternative 2 is if you want to modify what the applicant's proposing, you could do that too, right? So that would be option 2. 3 is what staff's recommending, which is just to uphold the existing approvals, but also at the same time, extend the life of the project for another year to 2024. Then last is continue the item. The only reason we did not recommend this at all is just because we have also noticed this for the council meeting next week. So we would be in a rush to get it to next week, just based on the milestones that Chelsea has communicated to us. And so that's why we noticed it for next week. Now, if it was continued, then we would have to, at the next meeting next week, we would have to, it would have to reschedule that for city council, which we can do, right? But we went ahead just out of abundance of caution, already noticed it for council next week, just considering the timeline.
I just have a point of clarification. So for this extension, I understand you need time to finish the project. Will this be the deadline of completion of this project?
No, this is the May 11th is an extension of the CUP only. So basically the conditions of approval are extended since the first time we discussed them was in May 2022, which was good for 1 year. So it just makes sure that we don't lose the right to build the project. So we would very much like that extension. Please. So.
From a project management perspective, and I'm sure you can answer this, how long would it take to complete this? Let's just say we get everything approved, we move forward. What is the ETA for completion of this project?
It's 18 months from start. So we'd start in June and finish in December 2024.
It's 2.5 years.
So Commissioner,
18 months.
18 months.
We have to start in June.
if you're wondering if the 1 year timeframe is enough, the way that it works in our code is that once they get the extension, if they pull a permit and are doing construction, that just extends the life of that permit. So if they don't finish by May 11, 2024, but they're doing construction, they've already vested their entitlements.
Just curious on timeframes. do you anticipate coming back with any additional iterations or amendments, or I'm just
Absolutely
curious?
not, no.
So this is-
Whatever we
so-
decide, that's what's gonna happen so that we can get going on building.
Can I ask a question? Back in November 9th, 2022, when we removed the requirement for a sidewalk separated from curve by landscape parkway. What was the city's desire then, and what was the requirement? What was actually proposed? Are we talking full extents around the project, or fully perimeter, just along Cesar Chavez?
Yeah, just on Cesar Chavez.
And so did we find that, but obviously, how, as far as cost, right? How much cost saving was that, right? So that's my question, right? So what are we looking at this initially, what we look? New sidewalk along, is it sidewalk now?
Back there.
Yeah, so there's an existing sidewalk there in it, from what I understand from the applicant can explain this a little bit more. They want to retain the existing sidewalk so they don't have to remove it and replace it. Have a planner there, build a new sidewalk behind the planner. So there's a cost consideration. I'm just not sure how much it costs, and maybe Colleen can
Well,
elaborate on that.
The other thing, though, is that that's what happened at Pueblo Viejo Villas. So if you alter the sidewalk, what's going to happen is it's going to be for a little while on Tripoli, and then it's going to revert back to the curb around the retail, and then it's at the curb on Pueblo Viejo. So for continuity of the sidewalk down the 2 blocks, that's why we were maintaining the sidewalk as is. And once again, any changes?
Sixth Street.
That's.
Oh, no, just Cesar Chavez. Everything else has the upgraded sidewalk.
So if we
It's just
look
on
at
that one.
continuity basis, right, as it comes out of rent of the market across the street, that's under a shade structure there, right? Correct. What it's doing there. But I know it's obviously there's existing sidewalk that lines the curb all the way through, but so I'm not sure what the plans are at the transit center next door, right? Coming over one parcel over, right? And what it does there obviously does there, but obviously that type of protection there, well, I look at it as protection, right? That type of setup, it promotes, it's pedestrian friendly. And one other thing that's there is a major crosswalk, right? That functions as a crosswalk, and where we really need to, which is probably how far is that from that intersection there? Like 25 feet, maybe?
Maybe, it's not that far.
Yeah.
You'll
And
see where you have to press the button,
yeah.
right? You don't
And I
have to-
also noticed too, like you guys have a crosswalk set up, on your property as well, or on the corner there, right? So I'm kind of wondering what's happening with those crosswalks there, and how they're actually going to be functional, right? But whether or not there's a crosswalk, those are warranted there, perhaps, So, what I'm getting at really is, I would like as much as protection as possible.
Sure, so my
And I
comment,
think by trying to achieve that is to bring back that item. Like, I would like to see that. If there's one thing that I would like to see is continuity, moving straight forward from here on out, right? And trying to get to a place where the future of Coachella, right, where we want to take the city.
so
And with proposing one thing and in aligning and getting our hopes up is one thing, and having us buy in, and then become, to a place now where we're at today.
yeah, so I don't know if you know, but we're doing 3 blocks of street improvement on 6th Street. So we're doing in front of and around that development, and we're also doing from Tripoli to Date.
Right.
And Date to Palm.
On
And so once again, from a cost perspective, we are out of resources. We have added so much to this one project that what I would ask is that, we're undergrounding all those power poles on the whole site, and a bunch of other things that are included in this project. We're going to get rid of the homeless that are there. It's going to be a terrific thing, but we are out of financial resources to add more to this project.
Well, and if we prove, so Gabriel, if we go with staff recommendations. Has there been a conversation with the Chelsea team about what that looks like from their budget, like from a budget perspective? I mean, will they be able to meet those?
Yeah, I don't know entirely because I don't fully know what the costs of everything are. But they've expressed that they believe they can't make these modifications from the conditions of approval. And they have to make these modifications to make their project work. So what would happen if the plan commission approved what the applicant would like, then it would go to city council. City council still has to approve it.
Yeah.
If you don't and you go with staff recommendation, the applicant still has to present their same case to the city council next week.
Understood.
I got a question. So obviously. This, we're back here, and we'll have a few months. You were here discussing yellow here.
Mhm.
Why wasn't these 9 items, 10 items identified then?
That's a very good question. So we worked our way through the drawings. It's an iterative process. So you're making new drawings and then you're pricing them out at the same time. And the trend of construction pricing, despite what anybody would say, is that it's always increasing. So we're trying to pull it down and push it up. So we tried to include as many things as we possibly could. And
The thing is, we've already had a condition of approval. You guys went back and redesigned. It doesn't make sense. This project's already ready to go based on what we all agreed on the second reading. The first reading, we eliminated a lot of stuff trying to help you guys out financially.
sure,
And then you come back, the third time, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. I think, we had to stick to the staff recommendation. And hopefully, give you guys a little more time and hopefully we can figure it all out. You guys can sit down with staff and then we could all come together and make this work for everybody.
and that's what we want is, wish we were all in a better position to
Yeah.
be happy about it because it's going to be a great project and it has a lot of things that are going to improve that corner. The project is an upgrade from the Pueblo Viejo Villas. It is not a downgrade whatsoever. It's got more details to it.
Well, I
So,
don't know if I agree with you on that one, because we have, the original with the 2-piece with the parapet, the pitch, there was a lot of stuff that was actually eliminated from the original renderings.
yes,
So-
from that
so
design, it's true.
I brought those up and I kind of agreed with you guys and figured, try to help you guys out financially and came back with a second reading, we approved that one. We figured we're ready to go and now you guys come back with a third reading and try to, I don't know. I'm gonna just stick with the staff recommendation. Hopefully you can sit down with staff and we can all figure it out and move forward in a good way, really appreciate what you guys are doing in the community, really love what you're doing. The projects are beautiful and we just want to keep them that way. We don't want to downgrade one from the other. I think aesthetically, this is the entryway into the Pueblo Viejo. We need to keep it consistent. And I want to just go with what staff is recommending. I think that's the appropriate way.
So staff is recommending item number 3.
Item 3, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Chair, are we ready to?
Yeah, make a motion if you. We're gonna go with number 3, not approved resolution number PC 2023-14.
Excuse me, I didn't recall hearing you close. the
You want me to
public
close it?
hearing. Yeah.
Do we have any more comments from,
And I have experts here if you need any more opinions or.
do we have any more comments? Okay.
Good evening, David Potter, Director of Development with Chelsea. I just wanted to comment on one thing related to the cost issue.
Thank you.
Really interest rates, construction loan interest, which we all know interest rates have gone up in an unprecedented fashion even since February. That has had a major impact on what our current design is and what we could do and potentially work through as far as future design features. So that was an unforeseen wrinkle that has added millions of dollars of costs. And that is a big piece of why we're back here talking about these items that we didn't bring up at that time. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I have a question for you. So how much of the interest rate did it spike from the initial budget or like from the loan that you were getting as a builder? Because it is my understanding that developments or like groups like yourself get a discounted interest rate for construction versus myself as a consumer, as a resident. I get a different one. So can you educate me on that, please?
Yes, I think actually Colleen may know more about the specifics of the financing.
Yeah, it's about
So you are at what, 5%? Is that what I'm hearing? I'm just curious, just a ballpark. Okay.
What is the overall budget or the overall so far projected forecasted costs of the project?
Thank you.
The good part about it is that the incentives that we get from the federal and the state and
That
the
was
county.
that was my next question.
So I mean, that's the big plus for type of developments,
Yeah.
affordable housing, obviously. So.
Cooperate with me. I was trying to print it earlier today before I got here and it just would not print. So, yeah, so what you end up doing is the rents, the reduced rents support a small perm loan from a standard bank. And then what you have to go do is get gap financing to fill the gap other than your tax credits and bonds, which are the last step. That's your equity piece. So it's a very complex, highly regulated situation where each of those sources of financing have their own requirements that go along with them. So we have what the city's requiring us to do, as well as the state from two different sources, plus a locality that where there the home funds from Riverside County and the developmentally disabled source that gives us fund. They have requirements for their units as well. So I can't, oops, there it is. Oh. There are costs also included in the project for they're kind of accounting costs. So the total construction cost per unit, if that's what we want, is $266,000 per unit for construction.
Times 108, right?
About 28 million for the construction.
Was that 28 million?
Wait, hard cost? No, that's not incorrect. Sorry.
What is it to me?
33,639, 33 million or 311,480 per unit on the hard costs. So that's our biggest line item.
And how much of that is funding?
The funding comes from we're bringing in tax credit equity of 28 million. And other public funds, the developmentally disabled units, they are paying $1.3 million for their 10 units to house folks. They also give services to their residents. Let's see. The county home is 2.3 million. And we're bringing in 4 million from the state as well, just another 4 million. So it's just all these cobbled together finances. Each one of these financing sources requires an application. It's in competition with other cities. So the other thing that happened with the financing is that we were in a very competitive tax credit market. And I think I mentioned this to you before, this may ring a bell. But there was a strategic way to achieve those tax credits, but it was not with a big fat project that could fit everything. It was a skinny down project. So we had to get super competitive. And that's the only reason why we were able to finance it sooner. Otherwise, if we had gone with a big financing package that could include a lot of things and absorb a lot of things, we wouldn't have gotten financed in that round and we'd still be waiting and we wouldn't be able to start construction in June.
Good job.
I have a question. Are you expected to be over budget with the current design plan that you have?
It is very tight. So what I expect is that for our lenders and investors to give us the feedback that we can't increase the budget in any way at this time, but I think we can figure out a way to make it work. So we are not going to walk away at this point. We are going to make it happen. We were hoping to get a little more relief because of how tight things have gotten, but we really can't. I mean, we're at the point, lenders and investors look at your financial plan and there's a point where they say that they're no longer comfortable with it. And we're kind of a little bit on that line right now. I think we're okay, but not too much more.
Okay.
So,
Thank you to the Chelsea staff and everybody here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Colleen.
Can we see the recommendations? Like to bring forth a
Do you
motion.
want to close? the-
Yeah,
We have any more comments, public comments?
Okay, right.
No more public comments?
Let me check.
There's anybody on Zoom, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, closing the public comments at 7:44. Moving on to,
Motion.
we have a motion.
Yeah. Can we present the motion? So the options here. Please, I'd like to present or move a motion, present a motion not to approve item number 3, not to approve resolution number PC 2023-14 and maintain existing project approvals and grant a 1-year extension to May 11th, 2024.
I second that.
Yeah, roll call.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Arvizo,
Yes.
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
And Chair Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Move on.
Going on to item 6, Coachella Airport Business Park. Change the zone.
We push.
Yeah.
We pushed it to the June 7th.
Oh, yeah, so. You're gonna go ahead.
Yeah, this was continued to the June 21st meeting. And you need to open the public hearing on this one.
Should open the public hearing.
Okay, let me open the public hearing at 7:46 on item 6. We have any public comments?
If there's anybody on Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand.
City Attorney, if someone were to speak today, they would not be able to speak when we present this again.
It depends on the way that it's presented. So for example, with this item, it's just a straight continuance, the same item
Okay,
being presented at the next meeting. That's correct. They would only get one bite at the apple, but if there's any change in, for example, staff recommendations or the project or anything like that, they would have an opportunity to speak, when the item is continued.
understood. Thank you.
And Chair and Planning Commission, so you know, there is a letter that was provided to you on the dais regarding this project. And it just had a lot of comments about the CEQA analysis. And so those are being reviewed by staff and responded to for the next meeting
Okay,
on June 21st.
item 6, continue to next meeting. Informational Development Service future agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna close the, let me close the public comment at 7:47. And then we'll go on to Informational Development Service future agenda.
Yeah, so again, we have the future agenda available for you. So that's just to give you an idea what's coming up on the future agenda. And so this is a little bit of a busier May, but June's going to be busy too, because some of the items that were continued. So if you have any questions about any of the things coming up, I'm happy to meet with you about any of the items. Some of these issues are going to be complex. One of the ones that was going to be renoticed is zoning consistency. There's a lot there. So if you just have questions, happy to sit down with you and talk about it.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to that's it.
Yeah. That's
Okay, we go informational 8 director's comments.
I have no comments.
Okay, so. 7:48 adjournment.
Motion.
Make a motion. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Okay. Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Arvizo,
Yes.
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes, sir.
Chair Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. 7:48 adjournment. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent job.
Thank you.